The differences between using an aluminium bottle versus a carbon fiber composite bottle for PCP air guns. We will discuss the following. What is more durable? Which can handle the higher pressure? In the field usage versus around the home. Special consideration should be given to using either type of bottle outside of the home. Here are the reasons. Both types of bottles are susceptible to impact damage if dropped onto a hard surface. Both types of bottles are susceptible to scratching if moved against an abrasive surface.
The key here is when you're transporting everything, so we've got to be a bit careful. Don't want to scratch this up. We had it on some rocks. There, ideally, what you've got to do is have a boot on your tank, when you're out and about, so you don't scratch things up. But what we'll do is we'll put it back in here.
These scenarios should be vastly reduced around the home, or should be. The carbon fiber bottle is even prone to physical damage, due to the softer nature of the coating epoxy resin versus the aluminum surface. Most aluminium bottles will not be hard anodized but rather painted in order to reduce the cost of the production. Exterior physical damage. Small scratches or dents may have no long-term effects on the integrity of an aluminum cylinder, however similar amounts of physical damage to a carbon fiber tank may render it no longer serviceable, or drastically reduce its lifespan. Whilst carbon fiber composite tanks can usually handle a much higher working pressure than a volume equivalent aluminium tank, epoxy resin is more susceptible to physical damage, which could lead to premature delamination and/or cracking of the exterior composite. Albeit, most carbon fiber tanks are finished with an exterior coating of fiberglass and epoxy resin to protect the last wrapping of carbon fibers. Interior damage. Both types of tanks are susceptible to internal corrosion if consistently filled with moist air because both are lined with aluminium, and especially if the tanks are not used for long periods of time. To avoid this situation, one should definitely adhere to the inspection period. Exposure to unnecessary heat and chemicals. Both types of tanks are susceptible to increasing external temperatures, black painted aluminium ones possibly more than carbon tanks, unless painted black. It is wise practice to limit the exposure of carbon fiber constructed tanks to the sun. However, carbon tanks due to their construction may be susceptible to UV radiation, dependent upon user location globally, whereas aluminium tanks, this will have little effect if none. All manufacturers' instructions should be stringently adhered to in regards to preventing tank overpressure due to leaving the tank exposed to the sun, wherever it is being used or stored. Carbon fiber wrapped tanks should not be immersed in any cooling liquid during filling. If the tank being filled is allowed to become hot, then the pressure read on the gauge after filling may not represent accurately the temperature at which the tank will be used. Chemicals. Carbon fiber composite tanks should never be exposed to any chemicals, especially organic solvents and oils, such as petrol etc. The exterior should be kept clean by wiping gently with a clean non-abrasive damp, not wet, cloth. Absolutely no oil or grease of any type should be used around any HP valve system unless you plan on a risk of death. Despite aluminium being resistant to most organic solvents, tanks should be treated likewise. Even solvents such as ethanol can be alkali in nature, and hence should never be used to clean the inside of a tank or its exterior surface. Bear in mind that the larger the tank the longer it will take to fill with any given compressor or tank bank, and the hotter the said tank will become. A 300 bar 1.1 liter carbon tank to fill from empty may take around 10 to 15 minutes, dependent upon one's compressor system, and will definitely become warm after such a filling. This is normal. Don't forget, sometimes the most overlooked parts can render any expensive air gun useless, such as but not limited to the loss of O-rings, failing to maintain O-rings. Periodic checking of O-ring structure can avoid a hazardous situation, the loss, or failing to maintain high-pressure polyester washers, failure of adequate silicone grease, or too much silicone grease, on O-rings, never directly upon O-ring seating surfaces, failure to keep clean all O-ring seating surfaces and keep them free of scratches and other physical damage.